Okay, so it gives me great pleasure to introduce you to two very good friends of mine, Lynda and Phill, who collectively own a company called International Visual. What inspired me to kind of bring them to Glee was back in February, I ran a retail safari in London for some garden centres. I decided that garden centres needed to see something outside of garden retail. So we took a whole group of garden centres to Stratford City and the new Westfields shopping development right next to the Olympic Park. And we had some really quality time, because we spent some time setting the tour up, with Marks and Spencer's, Primark, lots of big companies and brands that were presenting themselves basically in preparation for the Olympics. Because if you think about it, the brands had the world at their feet for those 4 weeks. So companies like Marks and Spencer's were really trying some new cool stuff. And as a result of that, it opened my eyes to the idea of, okay, we need to take visual merchandising more seriously as an industry. And that's what brought me in contact with Lynda and Phill, whose business model is purely that. They spend their time working with retailers, all sizes, all over the UK, occasionally further afield, to bring those. And what I've asked them to do is to kind of think about this audience and give you some ideas as to how you might use visual merchandising in your own stores.
Welcome to our session on Visual Matters. As John has already explained to you, our company's name is International Visual Limited. But just before we start our session, we thought we'd tell you a little bit about ourselves, a little bit about our background, so you understand why we can come here and talk to you with some authority about how to make shops look good. I founded International Visual about 5 years ago along with Phill, so Phill and I are business partners. But prior to that, I worked for 15 years with House of Fraser. So I was the visual merchandising director there. So as my role as visual director in House of Fraser, we looked after the exterior look of the store, all of the branding, the windows, the window displays, the design of the fixtures, and all of the retail interior design. So that included all the shop fits. For all the own label brands, we designed it in-house. And then for concessions, they had to come through us before they were allowed to go into the shop. On top of that, we designed all of the packaging and all of the customer interaction materials. So that's the leaflets and the ticketing and the signage and the point of sale. Phill was one of the members in my team there, and we worked together there for 15 years, and I'll let Phill introduce himself.
Thank you. I've been in retail all my life, since I was 16. I started on the youth training program. People might know it as apprenticeship scheme now. It's a bit posher than when I first started, so I'm showing my age. But I love retail, and I started off just sweeping the floor and making coffee and not being allowed to even talk to customers to begin with. I was in sports retailing. I'm the most unsporty person you'll ever meet. However, I got to know a lot about the sports industry, and that was an industry that we didn't really have visual merchandising in. We had windows and we had great product, but we didn't know what to do with it. And just because I have an OCD and keeping things looking neat and tidy, I got a bit of a name for myself for having a really, really good store. Not only was I putting money in the till, but I was making things look good, including my window. And things that I was featuring in my window were outselling the rest of the company, and they didn't understand why. So they came along and had a look, and I explained about the windows, and I ended up actually doing the windows for all the stores in the company. It was just a little family-run business at the time, 6 stores. It now has over 40 stores, and in fact it has been bought out now, and the owners have made their multi-millions and gone off to pastures new in the sunshine. Lucky them. So through visual merchandising, they put a lot more money in the till. I then moved on, and I had my own restaurant and I had my own card business. And I met Lynda whilst I was working for a visual merchandising consultancy firm, and moved into House of Fraser. And we really saw ourselves in House of Fraser as the guardians of the look of the company. House of Fraser is a department store group and covers lots of different lifestyles, over many different stores and over many different floors, and also many different products. So whilst working there, we got to touch everything. And whereas in a big department store like House of Fraser, you have dedicated people looking after certain things like a marketing team, and even within a department store you have somebody looking after a cook shop and a perfumery shop, visual merchandisers have to look after everything. They have to sprinkle the magic everywhere. Hence why we called ourselves the guardian of the look, because it was important that we had an umbrella view over the whole store to make it look strong.
Okay, so whilst there, we were very fortunate to win many awards. So we were award winners in window design, store design, use of mannequins, and I actually was a judge then on the international and the national awards for the UK for windows. So judging companies like Selfridges, Harvey Nichols and so on. So we're very proud to be involved in that award industry as well. We left House of Fraser 5 years ago because our jobs were put at risk, and Phill and I were both offered the opportunity to apply for the same job. So we decided not to do that. We left, took our redundancy money and started up our own business. We're in business 5 years, so we've only ever traded in tough times. We don't know what it's like to trade in good times because we haven't had any yet in 5 years. So
But we're still here.
We're still here, and we're still standing. And we're very, very lucky with some of the work that we've done. We've really enjoyed it. We are experts in retail interior design, enhancing environments or creating new environments, but our expertise is really there for a purpose, and that's to attract customers to products and to create sales. So we only feel we've done our job well if the store takes more money. So the whole purpose of it is to actually build sales. So we look at visual merchandising and creative training, so we can either do it or we can teach people how to do it. So we're here today to give you a little bit of an insight into what we do and to give you some ideas to steal, to take back to your shops and your businesses.
Okay, so we've got a varied client sheet. Because we are known in the multi-retailers, we've worked with people like Marks & Spencer's, Boots, L'Oreal, New Look, lots of brands that you'll recognise there. For those companies, we actually do a lot of creative training, because it's really hard for these companies, or any company, year in, year out, to come up with new ideas. So we go in and inspire people and give them new ideas. But there's lots of non-high street brands. When we started the company, because we'd been working for a multi-retailer for a long time, and we both live in small towns, we wanted to make sure we were working with independent retailers as well. So we've actually gone out and made sure that we are working with independent retailers all over the country. And recently, it's quite interesting, we've been working with county councils. I don't know whether anybody has heard of the Mary Portas report that's been going on about how to save the high streets. Well, before that, actually, the government did give county councils money for visual merchandising, but a lot of these councils didn't really know what to do with it. So we were very lucky enough to actually read a report on it and write to some of the councils, and actually, we weren't touting for business, we were actually saying to them, do you know what visual merchandising is, and do you know what to do with it? And guess what? They didn't, because they hadn't heard of it before, being in a county council. So we then moved on to actually work with 3 county councils. One of them was still working with Lynda, and we've worked with over 300 independent stores all over the country, really to give them help and advice, because they don't have the team support that people do in bigger companies. Very often, independent retailers, and even some of you guys, being it small, if you're just owned by a few people, only have you to do it. So you don't have the support of big other teams to come in and help you. And then we work internationally as well, something that we've never done before, hence why we called ourselves International Visual. It's a bit of a smokescreen, because when we started the company we hadn't worked internationally, but by putting that name on there, we actually did our first job. We worked in Kuwait setting up a store out there. Since then we've worked all over the world. Okay, so the first question is, what is visual merchandising? So all of you are sitting here. First of all, I'd like to ask, how many of you here are responsible for visual merchandising in your business? Or the look of your stores if you don't have visual merchandisers? Anybody? Part of it, yeah? Okay, well what we'd like to do is by the time you leave, we'd like you all to think you are responsible. Everybody in the business who's walking through the shop floor, even if it's on their way from a stockroom to the cash register, is responsible for the look. So if they see something out of place, they should be looking at it, and that's how you should tell your staff. So the first thing is, what is visual merchandising? Because it encompasses an awful lot of things. So visual merchandising to me starts from the outside. When you drive in your car into your car park,
How easy is it to get a space? How accessible is it to get out and get into your garden centre? What does it look like? How well gardened is it? Are the plants alive, well and blooming? Is it a good example of your expertise? So the outside is very important. Is the paintwork clean and fresh? Is there a lovely display outside? Are you using vertical walls to show the customer what the new trends are? How pleased are you with your first appearance from your customer's point of view? And then when you get to the door, it's what are your windows like? How many of you hear of windows? Window display opportunities? Yeah?
Just a few.
Because if you don't, it's worthwhile looking for how you can create a display, if not a window, some kind of an external display to your business, whether that's planted or whether it's product. Okay? And then the branding. So regardless of where you use your brand and how often you use your brand, whether it's on your website, on your business cards, on your shirts like you've got on today, whether it's on any of the equipment that you have available, any of your handouts, that your branding is consistent. So that's part of visual merchandising. And also all of the signage that you use inside the store. Okay?
Okay, and then once you get inside the store, and this is something that sometimes garden centres don't tend to do, and you might even not know some of this terminology, but it's about focal points. And focal points are things that stop you. So once you walk into a place, they actually stop you and make you want to have a look at whatever is in that display. In this instance, in a House of Fraser department store, this is a really big entrance area from a lift well, and it was a void, a big huge void. By putting this display in there as people come out from the lifts, before they go on into the department, it actually makes them stop and look at a story that we're telling them. Interior design, visual merchandisers get involved in interior design. In House of Fraser, we were responsible for the design of all own brand labels. So the actual shop fit, and this is a picture, a computer-generated image of the Lynda brand, which is very famous within House of Fraser. So we would actually look at the design for that. And then visual merchandising in its purest form, which is about creating the wow factor, creating that thing that makes you want to go over and buy those products, and doing it in a different way that will attract people. Because people see the same things day in, day out. So as a visual merchandiser, just by making a small step change, suddenly a display that was not putting any money in the till, by sticking a mannequin there, brought the product to life, and suddenly people came towards it. So visual merchandising is there to put money in the till and bring life to products as well. And then layouts, this is something we're very passionate about. The big boys, you know, Tesco, Sainsbury's, all these big companies, they have huge teams of people who sit in offices watching how customers walk around like ants, and then tweaking the layout and moving the milk from there to there, which annoys us, but actually gets us to a dead part of the store. In a lot of small stores and small companies, people don't really think about the layout, but layout is vitally important. Visual merchandisers can help you with layout and help you make people walk through your departments and put points of interest along the way to tell a story.
Okay, and then finally, it's about the atmosphere. So a lot of you came to hear John speak about clicks and bricks. And the thing is that clicks now hold people's interest. People love surfing the net. They're able to watch videos, they're able to interact, they're able to leave opinions, and they really like it. So you've got to make your building and what they experience in the store even better. It's got to be exciting, it's got to be somewhere that you want to go, and it isn't just about the weekend, although we talked about the weekend experience, it is a good experience all the time. So creating atmosphere is several-fold. It's the staff, what they're wearing, how they look. You know, you just have to think about Abercrombie and Fitch and how they actually, you know, select the staff to match the brand. Then you also have to think about the atmosphere, music, the smell, the colour of the place. Is it drab? Is it bright? Is it cool? Is it calm? And finally, events. What's happening? What's interacting? When you walk into a department store, the first department that you hit, what's the first department in a department store usually? All the girls will know, because it's always cosmetics, perfume, yeah? And every counter that you walk past with perfumery and cosmetics, they're doing something. they're, sorting people's eyebrows, they're testing colours, they're doing facials. That's why those departments are there, because it's active, it generates excitement and it animates what's going on. So just think about that whenever you're planning your own layout. How can you animate your store as soon as people come in? What could you be demonstrating? What could you be showing? What could you be letting them smell? The smell of a rose, the touch of a lovely piece of pottery, what is it that you're trying to demonstrate? So think about these things too. Okay, so the next thing that we've done then, if that's what visual merchandising is all about, how do you pull a look together? And I think the easiest way to do that is to show you some pictures of good examples of fabulous merchandising. Okay? So the first thing that we thought we'd do was, because you're all garden related businesses, we thought let's try and look at how do you design a garden? How would you design a garden? Because most of you here would know how to design a garden, and see how similar that is to how do you design a space for a retail space. And we found some surprising results, didn't we? Because
Actually looking at it,
fact,
yeah, it was exactly the
they're
same.
very, very similar. So if you can design a garden, you can design.
Terminology was different, but the principles are exactly the same.
Okay, so this piece of information here is actually from Channel 4, and it's about how to design a garden in 7 stages. So what the words on here aren't ours, because we're saying how do you design a garden. They're from Channel 4. So the first thing they told us was work out your space, and it said think about what you want from the space, balance practicalities such as your shed, your washing line with the things that you want to have, get a piece of paper out, and then work out where the desirables and the necessities need to go, so things you need access to. So for shops, Phill, it's very
It's
similar.
exactly the same, because that's the first thing that we do whenever we're working with a company, doesn't matter how big or small, is we like to get a piece of paper, and once we've understood the company and what they're trying to achieve, is to draw it out. And the thing is, I've been into loads of businesses, and when you go into a business and they're making a move or changing things, they're stuck in and things are flying everywhere and everything's animated and you're walking over things and the customers can't get it right. And actually, customers do like disruptions. As soon as you start doing anything, they come in. However, when you're working with smaller objects, it's easy with fashion. You can gather it all and put it on a rail and wheel it away. But as soon as you come to accessories or homewares or anything like that, it's everywhere. So you have to plan. And it's easier to make your mistakes on paper than moving things around 3 or 4 times. So we always say to people, if you don't have a plan of your space or your store or the space that you're working in, draw one. Just measure it up with a tape measure. Lynda and myself, we've always got tape measures where they're measuring things out. And then measure your fixtures and populate them. Just cut them out and move them around. But don't forget to also think about how your customers walk around things. And in House of Fraser, when we were ever working on a plan, we always had to leave a 1,500 square radius circle around fixtures. And that's the double buggy syndrome. So if mum comes in with a double buggy, she can get around easy. So that's quite important, that you then have this little circle that you can move around as a person to say, yes, I can get around. And when planning your plans, exactly the same as in gardens, it's all about balance and symmetry. You can see here that we've put an entrance at the front and we've got a table either side of the door. The same, balance and symmetry. In the middle, we've got a focal point so that when you walk through the door, you're looking at something. And that's all we've done, is you work through everything on one side of that plan is in exactly the same position as it is on the other side. It might not be exactly the same fixture, but it's in the same position and taking up the same footprint. So planning is really important, and it will save you a lot of time and a lot of headache later on.
But it's the same as your garden design. If you're designing a garden, you would tend to put something to the left and the right. Balance and symmetry, mirror image, it always works well. Okay, so the next step, according to Channel 4, was to hide and divide. So basically the best way to make a space look bigger is by dividing it up. It gives you the opportunity to hide what you don't want to see, such as a shed, and make the space far more interesting. It's like when you're on a walk and the path ahead leads you and curves out of view, it's far more interesting. Now, it's exactly the same with planning your visual merchandising layout. A lot of people say to us, oh no, don't put a big high fixture there. No, because they'll not see the whole shop. Well, guess what? We don't want them to see the whole shop the minute they come through the door, because that's far too much to see. What you want them to do is come in and be in a welcoming room, a space that they can see and they can familiarise themselves with, but get a glimpse of something fabulous just round the corner that makes them want to go there. And then when they get there in turn, oh my God, that looks really interesting, I want to go over there, and make them shop the whole space. Now that is exactly the same as your garden planning. Focal points, points of interest, let people wander around and find the space. So Phill, this is one we did, wasn't it?
Yes, this is a furniture shop. And something, the way that we like to think about it, we like to work on a compass system. So north, south, east, west. So we always say whether it's one big room or it's a number of rooms, whenever you enter into that space, you're in the south position. And then normally what people do when they come in, they either look straight ahead of themselves, or if you're right-handed, you will always look to the right. If you're left-handed, you'll always look to the left. So visual points should be positioned in those points so that you've got something to look at ahead of you to draw your attention in, and to your right and to your left. And if you always work on that compass method as you move through your space, you will always get some key points of interest. In this instance, this was a furniture store which was actually over 3 different stores that had been knocked together. So it had already been hidden and divided. So there was lots of little rooms, and they were trying to encourage people to go through. But when we actually went there, everything was the same. And they hadn't really thought about different customer profiles. They were trying to show everything in tiny little spaces. So we were actually saying, no, enter with one customer profile, whichever customer profile you feel is the right thing for people to see. So here, as you entered the store, you came into this lovely room set, which had a beautiful pattern sofa, neutral colours, but the pattern was taken from the actual sofa and put up onto the wall. So there's something in the distance that is equally as powerful as the thing in front of you. But as you wander through the store, because you are having to go through doorways, what we said to people is actually tell people what is coming. So when you're walking through this doorway, announce what you're going to see. So actually when you walk through here, we're telling people you're going to come through to the design workshop. And we're showing you a sneaky peek, because you can see a few little things, just enough to whet your appetite. But when you get through that doorway, show the full thing. So there it is, the design workshop in front of you. And the same the other way around, as you're walking from the other area through to the atrium, and it being an atrium and a bit of New York loft style, it's going to be a bit more modern, so your modern furniture sits better in that area. So lead people on journeys, don't show everything at once.
Okay, and this is just a little tip as well. Sorry, Phill. When you're leading people through, it's a little bit like a garden where you might create a lovely arch to take you from one part of the garden into the other. Here, we've just used a tin of paint. So for £15 and the cost of a very simple white vinyl decal to stick onto the wall, we painted it dark chocolate brown on both sides to create like a gateway. So it's actually quite nice to do that and create spaces and use that colour format. Every time you want to introduce something, restaurant, cafe, toilets, paint a panel and put your words on it and use them in the same place. So you're communicating to the customer all the time.
And use architectural features, because in this case, those 2 columns were already there. But on the other side, there weren't columns. So actually, we just painted them in to be in exactly the same position from the other side as they were on this side. But if you have natural architectural features, don't be afraid of them. Actually use them to your advantage and build up on them and make them look bigger than they are.
Okay, the next point was, in garden design, keep your design simple. And I think that's a good message for life, full stop, isn't it? But it's choose a style and stick to it. Now, this is one of the biggest tips we can give you of all time. Decide who you want to attract. Do you want to attract the young, trendy, urban gardener, or do you want to attract the garden elder who's an expert in gardening and loves traditional gardeners? Who are you trying to attract, or are you trying to attract lots, say 3 different profiles? But you need to decide on the spaces within your store that are going to attract those people, because they're very different in terms of the look and the feel. If you like a modern garden, you're more likely to have a very simple square format with geometric shapes and, less planting. However, if you like a more formalist, it's probably going to be more organic and more curves and much more overplanted, if you like. So if you want to keep it simple, choose your style and stick to it. And the retailers that will show you that we love are because they know who they are, they know the customer they want to attract, and they are going for it. Okay? So this is a store that we designed in Hopetoun, near Edinburgh. It's a farm food shop, part of an estate, part of a Lord and Lady Hopetoun own the estate and need to diversify and make money from farm foods. So if you want to get a look that says it's a modern, classic, simple environment, then you start with it with the shop and the way you present the food, but you follow it through in the packaging and how you design it. You follow that through in the carrier bag, you know, your organic farm food. You carry it through in all your customer literature, and what the staff wear represents that same modern but classic look. So you follow it right through in terms of brand.
And if you've got 3 different customer profiles, all we're saying is that might be one room which relates to that customer, but then you might lead them on another journey to another room or another area of your store, which if you want to try and get their kids coming in might look very, very different from that. But don't do it all in one space, because it will all contradict with each other and end up looking very, very messy.
Okay. So for example, in a department store, we would have 3 different profiles of women shoppers. You may not be fully aware of this, but this is how it operates. And we used to have the quality classic customer, who was on one floor. We had the modern classic customer, who would be on another floor, and then we had the young trendy customer on another. The young trendy customer had a concrete floor, bright pink walls, disco music, DJs, catwalk shows, and all that going on, communal fitting rooms, and really modern pod style furniture. The modern classic floor was more clipped, lovely, but still trendy, but modern trendy, a little bit, you know, 30 to 40-year-old. But the quality classic floor had classical music, rugs, big, large, individual fitting rooms with lovely big cheval mirrors, fresh flowers. Do you get my drift? So the whole environment on every floor was for the customer. And guess who worked in the young trendy department? The young trendy girls with the shorts up to here and the hair down to there and the tan and the nails and everything. But on the more classic floor, the staff were more related to the customer.
Okay, so the next one is something I'm really passionate about, is using lighting. And what Channel 4 has said in their interpretation of using lighting in a garden, they really talked about the perspective of choosing light reflective surfaces for your garden. But I think it goes even further than that, because I've got a garden and I love gardening, and my garden's very shaded, so I've used spotlights all over my garden. Everybody around me thinks I'm absolutely barking mad, and I have my spotlights on every night of the week, not just when my friends come around. You know, they're on all the time, because my garden is an extension of my living room. And in retail, it's exactly the same. What is the point of spending all your time buying fabulous product, taking it in, merchandising it and making it look fabulous on fixtures, and then there is no lighting? Because when you put lighting onto product, it brings it to life. So you really have to think about the lighting. In this environment, as you can see, we're just in a floodlit area. So it's very difficult to pinpoint things. But when you get into smaller spaces, you can really think about controlling your lighting. So we've shown some of these examples of fabulous spotlighting. And it's quite interesting, because some retail stores now actually are reducing their ambient lighting level down to half what it normally is. Number one, they go on and they say that's very green friendly. I'm sure it is, and it's going to save them money. But they do it because they want to really punch out product. And in every single one of these photos you'll see there, it's about the angling of spotlighting. So down in the bottom picture, it's about the till, because you're over here and you want to make people know where the till point is. So the spotlight is right there on Please Pay here. On this, you're walking down an alleyway and it's a kitchen, but they've really zinged it out on the key eye level product that they want you to see. And here it's the first thing as you come in through the door, that spotlight is smack in the middle on the patterned product, bringing it to life. And spotlighting really does bring product to life, and it can make all the difference on a display.
Okay, and then one of the last points they made was about using the full height, because your height costs nothing. So in a garden, Take your plants up as high as you can, use your vertical wall systems, use the height of full height trees, don't be scared of introducing height. Well, in shops it's exactly the same. You may as well get the full value of all that rent that you pay and all that building that you own. So what we advocate is use the space at high level to get people across to different areas in your store. So if you've got that extra metre in height all the way around the wall, it's too high to reach to shop, but it's not too high to reach to give messages out to customers about what's beyond. So what you can do is you can be saying restaurant, it could be that it's children's department, toys, your Christmas shop, paint it gold and put your images of Christmas gift boxes and so on at high level. In these examples, we've done several things. This is showing a store that we designed in Oxford. It's all about souvenirs, Oxford souvenirs, university-style t-shirts. And at the top, because Oxford and studying is all very much part of the world of Oxford, we used letters on the alphabet with Oxford spelt out inside there in larger letters. And here, this was actually their stockroom cellar access. So we floored it over and put the display, instead of in precious selling space, up high so you can see all of the sweatshirts, and then we put a designed wallpaper behind it saying why study. So use the space. On the far left hand side, this is a fruit farm that Phill and I work with every year, and we used crates not just on the wall as a fixture, but to see how we've hung them from the ceiling, suspended. Now they look amazing with herbs in them, they look amazing with plants in them, strawberries, whatever you want. In this instance it was jam, and that says Kearney Fruit Farm Preserves, and all of their jams are featured on the table down below. So use that fabulous space up at high level to say something and get people across the floor.
And if you do need to use product, you can use it as stockroom space. Habitat do that all the time. So this is actually really, really high, and yes, you can only shop so high, but they don't hide it away. They actually put more of the same above there, rather than having it in the stockroom, and it's easy for the staff to be able to take it down and fill up the shelves as well. So sometimes you can use product, but you have to think about how you do it.
Okay.
And then using colour. They're telling us that we need to be bold. If you're going to use colour in planting, really go for it. Even if the colour is green, big blocks of colour create a sense of unity and cohesion. And it may seem at first as if it's boring to actually use one type of colour, but it can be really powerful even when you're using lighter colours like that. It's exactly the same in the visual industry. Colour is powerful. As you can see here, these are all different companies, all using the colour green in many different ways to draw your attention. Terence Conran at the entrance of his store, this was about 6 years ago, was doing a hydroponic wall before other people were doing it. You walked straight into the store, wham bam, that was 3 meters high. In this instance, it's a simple wall taking actual plants that they sell. So they're fake plants, but they've taken the leaves and using them in glass frames and then putting a lovely piece of prose about it. In this instance, it's from outside the store. This is Heels. They had open back windows. So you start by seeing the green on the bedding, then you see this beautiful glass screen, and then that leads through right to the back of the store with green panels. So that's a great 3D perspective. In Habitat, again, it's just about introducing one colour per bay because all the other product is neutral. By adding that green and that orange and that red, it really zings the product out, but they're all bright colours. In this instance, this table, the product is all toiletries and it's all white, but by adding in the beautiful green and white above it, gives you the power because this product is tiny. However, it doesn't detract from it because you actually really do see that product as well. And then in this last instance, it's a bit the same as there, but they've just used their own product, picture frames, but taking some of them out and some of them in and using lovely colour on the wall. So colour is one of the easiest things, and it doesn't have to cost a lot of money. It's just a can of paint. And what I love about it is if you put it up, it's not a disaster. If you all then look at it and go, oh my God, I hate it, you can just paint back over it, which is a good solution.
Now, some tricks of the trade before we just get onto this slide. You don't have to go heavily into buying lots of trend colour. So if fuchsia becomes a very strong trend colour, you can still have your basic white china, but just add fuchsia glasses, fuchsia napkins, fuchsia coasters, or some flowers, and that means you look trendy because you've got the trend colour. But the fact is, you'll be selling lots of the white. and we all know that the white is going to be your biggest seller, but you can introduce the colour to support your best-selling line.
And use the colour in visual, just by putting a paint colour on the wall in the fuchsia. That might make the trend look bigger than it actually
really
is. People recognise it, but you've only actually bought into it in a small way.
Okay, less risk, more money.
Yeah.
So Habitat, loads of clear glass, lots of white, and all they do is they put one line of a trend colour at eye level. It's very clever, so steal the idea, okay? Lastly, and this is, I feel very passionately about this, is you must allow breathing spaces. So in garden design, it's a place to sit, it's a place to relax. It doesn't all have to be about working vegetables and ornamental garden. It's a place to sit and look and enjoy and just ponder the work you've just done in the morning. It's exactly the same in visual. You need a space, a breathing space or a display space to break up all the products. So for example, when we went to Habitat and introduced some of our displays into Habitat, this wall previously was a long run of just decorative, 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 decorative. So what we did was we said, no, let's have a department that is picture frames, all done by customer profile, so the modern classic. Then let's break it up with a sofa and let's show the frames as you would use them in a living environment and inspire the customers with how it looks. And then let's go into vases. So in between one department and the next department, you're showing a lovely little focal point and something for the customer to see the product being used in its environment. Okay?
Yep.
And then finally, we just want to ask you all to look for inspiration everywhere you are. So where do you get inspiration? Well, you can get inspiration from the internet, the television, magazines, home magazines, garden magazines. Shows like this are amazing for inspiration, but you've got to look. And it's not looking always in the same place. So sometimes you might get a great idea for your garden centre in a restaurant, because you walk to the restaurant and they've got fabulous planters outside the restaurant and you think, I love that, I'm going to nick that idea for our garden centre because that looks great. So Phill and I are always on the lookout for great ideas, and that's what we're going to do now, is just pass on some of the places we love and explain to you why we love them. And then some ideas that I think you could probably steal. They're not all garden related, some of them are from different types of businesses. So I'm going to start with one of my personal favourites, and this is a shop called Anthropology. So hands up, do you know it? There's a few people know it. So it's only recently come to the UK. It's an American brand. It's come to Regent Street 2 years ago, then it went onto the King's Road. It's now in Edinburgh, which is fabulous for me. They say that I live in Scotland. But this is what Anthropology has written about itself. So what I want you to think about is, what's your mission statement? And who are you? You know, what is your brand all about? And have you got a statement like this? Because this helps clarify what you do. So they have said, we are an American brand, but we have a European sensibility. It's a lifestyle brand, mixing apparel and homewares. It's an interesting and in a way an eccentric brand, but it's very accessible. And we are about feminine, handmade products. We're committed to the artistic process and working with artists in unique ways. In one of our stores, you may have a table with some beautiful sweaters mixed with a beautiful dress, and then some dishes or art pieces mixed in with it. So it has a very upscale flea market style. You might walk in and buy a gorgeous $300 dress, but you might walk out with a $5 bowl. So there's a real mix of experience in this shop. So can you start to visualize what it might look like inside already because of what they've said? Right, so what sets Anthropology apart from the competition? You know, we talk about a USP, but what makes them unique? Well, they believe in experience. So it's as much as the experience as it is about the product. So when you come into our store, it's not just about a collection of beautiful things, which it is, but it's also about the way that we put it together. We've got roughly 120 stores in the States, but every single store is autonomous in its visual staff. So they don't take instructions from head office. The staff in the store actually decide how it looks. So we have this incredible staff of creative people who take their assortment, and by that they mean their product range, and show it in a unique way. So who is the Anthropology customer? Well, she's typically a woman in her 30s or 40s who's established in her life. She knows what she likes. She knows what's relevant and what feels new and fresh to her. She's educated, she's well-travelled, and she appreciates art. Her time is very limited because she may have a family or a busy career. Okay? Now, I love that, and that to me paints a picture. Who's the customer? What do we stand for? What are our beliefs? And it's from the heart, you know, as well as the head. So what does the shop look like? Well, here you are. For those of you who haven't seen it, it's just amazing. Now, bear in mind, this is a fashion and homeware store, but the first thing you see on the left-hand side when you walk into this store is this amazing vertical wall of plants. Absolutely superb. And that wall doesn't just run for one height of the floor, it runs from the basement
It's about
right
15
through
metres high.
to the top floor. So absolutely amazing. So that's what sets them apart. They don't use all the space for selling stuff. All right? They don't fill the place with stuff. And then they have these fabulous ornamental props. Now, some people say, well, that's not product, and people get confused. It doesn't matter. It's about creating a look and a feel. But what it does say is, you know, we've got these fabulous shaggy knits, and they are artistic and they're different. It makes the space different. Then as you walk up the stairs and look up, you'll see these amazing chandeliers. Now, they look bright and they look funky, don't they? But if you look really closely, they're actually made up of a pile of junk. There's Coke bottles in there that have been split and painted. There's teaspoons, there's chandelier droplets, there's bangles, there's forks, there's knives, there's spoons, as well as lots of water bottles cut up and sprayed and painted. It's quite amazing. Next slide, Philly. And there's a close-up of it just to prove what I mean. But it's just an artistic experience. So they are superb. But then when you get to the clothes and you get to the fashion floor, then it starts to get a little bit more serious. And it's what Phil and I like to call, it's a curated look. Right? So everything in that room is there for a reason. Now, do you see what we said earlier about colour? Right? And a trend colour. Look how they've used the yellow in that picture. Right? There's actually only probably 4 yellow items. There's a yellow dress, one yellow thing on that wall, there's a yellow t-shirt, there's a yellow book, there's a few yellow things been put into but it's just a highlight colour of yellow. But you see how they've spread it out? So they've made maximum use of the yellow colour. But it's a very curated look, but it is mainly white with highlight colours. But that customer, they've made sure that the furniture that they use and the props that they've used evoke the right feel for that type of customer. And then this one, Phil, do you want to talk about the homewares?
Yeah. They're great at making theatrical statements, and they're not really scared about using size and form. When you go into this area, they actually covered the table up, part of the table, in this amazing cloth, which they've then taken up onto the wall, and they've got this very unusual polar bear. And the polar bear actually doesn't have bear any relationship to the product other than it's of the same colour. So they're very tongue-in-cheek sometimes. They've got a great sense of humour, and they actually use that tone of voice all around the store. But what it does is it's a wow factor, and it makes you actually stop and look and actually go, why have they used a polar bear on a table? But it makes you stop and it makes you ask that question. Well, just because they can, and it is different. But it doesn't detract from the product, because they've still merchandised on top of the polar bear with a crate full of the china that is actually on the table. And that table supports what's going on the back wall, so they're leading your eye from the table right up to the back area as well. And that's important, that you don't just do things in one space, you lead people on a direction up to something.
Okay. Now, some of you will be sitting feeling uncomfortable with the look of that shop. And some of you will be sitting thinking, I love it. Love it, love it, love it. Because it's a different customer profile. So this is where we'll go on to other examples of other types of environments, but you need to be comfortable. We're not saying put a polar bear in your business, all right? This is about painting a picture for the customer profile you're trying to attract, okay? This is the children's wear area in Anthropology, which is very sweet. They use crates, lovely little coloured cabinets. Everything that's in the department, by the way, you can buy. So if you like that little cabinet, or you like the shit, you can buy them. everything is for sale. So the fabulous thing about this is you don't need to have a shop fit cost, just buy the product and sell it. And then the next season when the trend changes, buy new product and sell it. So it's just a fabulous way to create a great area and sell everything, okay? And then for the Jubilee, this is what they did. So they don't go half measures, you know, with the little Union Jack flag. It's paint the wall, do it well, express the product within the theme.
And they mix vintage with new as well, because the dresses on there are all brand new. But a lot of the actual flags you see are vintage flags, but they're all for sale. So they don't mind mixing new and old products together.
Okay, and from the outside, you know, we talked about the impression from the outside. This is their window for the launch in Regent Street. Now, at first glance, you think, oh, that's lovely. It's like a setting sun, isn't it? It's got the yellow centre, and then it gets redder as it goes to the outside. When you get closer up and look at what this actually is, these are all strings attached from the ceiling to the floor, and do you know what those are? They're Twinings tea bags. So if you look at the next photo, Phil, I think I put a close-up in, they are all tea bags. So you know that Twinings advert where they did the fabulous picture on the floor, like a pixelated image? Well, they picked up on that trend and made this sunset out of tea bags. Now, to me, that is just fab. So if you want inspiration for windows, watch them, Google them, you'll find loads of inspiration. Now this is another window they did, and do you know what these are? They're paperbacks.
Books.
All of those are paperbacks. So basically each one of these is a book, and you just fold and fold and fold, take 4 or 5 pages at a time until you get a cylinder, and then they've strung them all together to create a chandelier. So every one of those are just folded in a different way. And Phil and I have actually done a window, haven't we? Use it. Takes a lot of time, but you get a very cheap, effective look from it. It's a nice backdrop for a window. So there's another idea for a window. And then the next one.
To show you really how Lynda and my brains work as well. Because if I was working for a garden centre and I was looking for inspiration, I would look at that photo and I would say, oh my God, wow, what a fabulous idea, that's in a window. Wonder what would happen if I put a table and I got some ivies and I put them in a crate and I actually strung these books up to the ceiling and I allowed the ivies to grow through it, or whatever plant. And then I put some of those plants for sale on the table. So our brains work in, we look at something in its purest form, how one company has used it, but then whoever we're working for, we take that back and say, yeah, we love that idea, but we're not going to do it like that, we'll use it in a different way. And that's really what you've got to do every day, is look at something in the way it's being used at the moment, but think, what could I do with that in my store? And it might not even be that you use it today, you might park it, and in 6 months' time you might go and you think, oh, I saw that fabulous idea, I'm going to nick it and use it and adapt it.
Okay, so for all you green lovers out there, which we are, this is Anthropologist's window using old bicycle wheels. Every one of those flowers is a Coke bottle. So you know the 2-litre Coke bottles, the screw lids, and they've cut the bottom off, and then they've made a petal shape, pulled it back and sprayed them all. And if you get the next photo, you'll see, do you see? Coke bottles, water bottles, you can see where the neck of the bottle is, and then they've just sprayed them. And then they've introduced all the trend items for this year, which are the galvanised buckets, and there's a garden window. And all you need to do is put some of your lovely pots in that environment, and you've got a fabulous display. Okay, over to Phil to tell you their next foray.
Well, I said to Lynda about 5 or 6 years ago, when we actually went to Anthropology before it came to this country, I said, I love this brand so much and I buy a lot of their things. What would happen if they were to ever open a garden centre? And guess what they did? They've opened a garden centre, and there are only 2 of these at the moment in the US. It's called Terrain, and this is one of them, and this is the first thing you actually see when you go to their garden centre. You actually see an old potting shed. But talking about trends and things, we were talking about trends earlier about the past and the new. This is a great example of using old and new, because you've got this old battered shed with its laser cut bright lime green brand on the front, so that's bringing the old and the new together. But Terrain, basically what they've done is their customers obviously love all this recycled and what I call granny's attic type things of making things, even though things are new and mass produced, they're made to look old. So what they've given them then is things that they can actually use in their garden. So they're after exactly the same customer. They've not really changed the way that they actually merchandise or the way that they display things. All they've done is introduce the outside in and the inside out. So they still want those customers, but they want them now to spend their money with them in the garden. And this is what they said about their new concept. They said the new concept is called Terrain at Stylers and sells a mix of beautiful homewares plus lots of garden-related items. It is the first of the company's stores that does not sell clothing. The shop itself is set in an antique greenhouse on an 11-acre site in Concordaville, PA, just outside Philadelphia, and they're having a second store opening in Connecticut. Now the thing, Anthropologie, when it first started, they never went into modern buildings. They always took old buildings that were in their rawest form. So they would take a building that was dilapidated and literally make it safe, but they would leave everything crumbling down. Now, because obviously they want to expand, they have gone into new buildings, but whenever they go into a new building, they always strip it back to its barest form. And when you go into some of the two stores in London, even where they haven't been able to do that, they've recreated old bits in the store. And they've done exactly the same with the garden centres. So this could actually be exactly the same as an Anthropologie store, but what they're doing is they're just introducing the plants for sale, and they're introducing the things that would normally live outside to the inside of the store. But what I love about Anthropologie as well is the merchandising, the style of merchandising. They've got all of this craziness going on, but what they do very, very well is they keep the merchandising simple. They always block merchandise, and they always put things in neat rows because they think there's loads and loads of things going on that our eyes have to cope with. So what we want to do is make the merchandise look simple and strong so that your brain looks at it in a different way and it stands out. As you come in through the entrance, they've got this beautiful old metal door, but we talked about having focal points. So the first focal point you see as you come in is a wow factor. So you don't even want to go anywhere else in the store. You just want to go, oh, I want to go and have a look at that. And you want to stay there for a little while. And then guess what? You'll turn around and you'll see something different. But they actually use things in different ways. So they use height. So you can't really see it here, but higher up, they've got all their nut-seam twine actually hang from the ceiling rather than just in a box on the table.
Now the other thing, just quickly back to that slide, one of the tips for visual merchandising and display is to use triangles. All right, so pyramid, triangle, height in the middle, and work your product down as low as you possibly can. And in this case, it starts up there and it works almost down to the floor, just at the height that you can reach. Same at the other side. And what you want to do is cascade it down to the customer and show her different layers of product. So it's the same as gardens, highest plants at the back, lowest plants to the front. So if you apply the same principles to your borders, apply them with inside your store as well and display. Same here. There's another triangle, do you see? So high to low, all the way. But then each line of product they've blocked in a very repetitive format, so it's easy to shop. So all the glasses, all the candlesticks, all the beakers, all in little levels, in little blocks within a triangle.
Exactly the same there. A lot going on in the background. They've even put wallpaper inside these units, but the merchandising is very, very simple. And you'll notice between lots of their products, they always leave a little space. And I'm a big fan of this. I call it the hand space. So when you're grouping products together, just slot your hand in and then start your next range or your next color of the same product, because people need breathing spaces for their brains to actually understand that they'll be moving from one thing to the other.
And another little tip, sorry Phil, again back to this one. Do you see the way they've blocked the merchandise here? A nice cheap way to do these lovely little squares for toiletries, candles, gifts, Christmas items is to get a packet of grey slate tiles, you know the floor tiles that you get? And just take a bench like that and put several and then space, 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 space. It's a nice way to block, and that gives you that lovely curated, organised look. This is a really key trend, using drawers as shelves on the wall. So get your old granny cabinet, take the drawers out, turn them upside down, and you get a shelf if you screw it onto the wall. Or suitcases, they can be used as shelves as well if you want that more eclectic, old-fashioned, vintage look.
We're going to speed through some of these because we need to move on with time. But you get the idea. What they have done is they have kept their lifestyle. They know their customer, and now all they're saying to them is, you loved our store, you love our clothes, come and buy our garden accessories, because it's the same and they've kept the same look, so they haven't diversified it.
Okay, so the beautiful
There it
examples
is.
of lovely curated look. Then another favourite of mine, and very quickly through this one, who knows Dalesford Organic? Yeah, a couple of you. An amazing brand which started in a farm in Gloucester. It's the Bamford family, the people who own JCB, so they're a very wealthy family, and the wife started this business. It's all run out of farm buildings, and that is one of the buildings that has become a shop, but they're very much about farm and organic merchandise. This is the entrance to their shop, so they've got a lovely outdoor-indoor space. Now this immediately gives me the signals that I'm going to experience something special. I have arrived at a place where it is a manicured courtyard, it is a manicured car park, it's a manicured seating around the bottom of the trees, and there's even dog parking and water for dogs and everything you would imagine somebody who cares about animals would provide. So just think about all these things in your business. How curated and how beautifully manicured does it look? This is what they've said about their brand. Straight from our farm to your fork. All our food comes straight from our farms, our meat and our poultry, fruit and veg from our market garden, bread from our bakery, and cheese and milk and yoghurt from our creamery. To make our soups and meals, our chef uses only the finest ingredients combined with simple techniques that bring out the natural flavours. So they're basically saying everything we do is curated. It is all contrived to be an organic producer. So if we move on and show you how they do it, this is what you face whenever you go inside the store. Lovely organic baskets, natural. They're all filled with paper, and then all of the produce topped up on the front. All the lovely images are of their farm and of their farm animals and of their estate. Look at the merchandising. Absolutely immaculate. But do you see the same little tips that I've told you? It's all blocked into squares.
Triangular shapes, starting with height at the top, coming down on the bottom.
Right down to the floor. Okay, so it's all exactly the same principle. This is how they've done their kitchen area in the store in London. They've taken the outside in, so they've actually feather boarded the wall. They've put all of the china, look, it's all blocked, and then they've added planting to hark back to that heritage of the farm and the brand. All of their food is all prepared fresh on site. All of the materials are luxury, so they are granite work surfaces, they are handmade basket pillars, everything is branded Dalesford. It's just beautifully handled.
And it's about detail in this company as well, even down to the fact, you see those pots of herbs, they're not there for decoration, they're for you. So when you get your bowl of pasta, you can rip those herbs off and put them onto your food. So it's visual, but it's interactive visual.
Same with basil for your salad and so on. And then what we love is they're proud to tell you the story. So we are Dalesford Organic, and they tell you about how they are organic and where the food is produced. They have pictures of their food and they tell the story at every point. This is what their market garden looks like, that's what their outdoor space looks like, that's what their preserves look like.
They power merchandise in the areas that they need to power merchandise, and what they're using as risers there, they're actually chopping boards. So they're actually using products that they sell. Instead of acrylic sheets, they're using the chopping boards to take the product up higher.
Okay, so great tips for Christmas time to get your product time. And then fruit and veg, as you would expect, all fresh and organic, shown in baskets. But the other thing is that every time that they have a space available, they take photographs of their animals and tell you about the sheep and how they're cared for. Likewise, they run courses and schools, and they have organic farming, they have how to manage your allotment, they have chefs courses, cookery courses, day spa, they have the whole lot.
They communicate to their customers in the store through visual media on the walls, but also everywhere you go there are leaflets for you to pick up. They give free recipes. When they create a cook shop area, they'll on the board they will write up a recipe for a cake, but there it will be printed out for you to take away. So they're a very giving company. They give you things as you shop in their store.
But it is pricey, expensive, premium, and as you'd expect, it's a luxury brand. That's
And
what
I
it's all
usually
about.
walk in and buy small things, but I always buy something, even if it's only a 50p thing. I always come away because I want to come away with that carrier bag, you see. Now,
Okay.
those are two big companies. One is a multinational company from America that is coming here. The other one is a company that has been started on a farm that has only got 2 or 3 stores in the UK but has gone abroad through franchise opportunities. Now we're bringing it right the way back down to local communities. One of my favourite places in London at the moment is actually a 5-minute walk from my house. And when I found this, I went, yes! Because I've been waiting for something like this to come to my area for a long, long time. And it's a company called Alexandra Nurseries, and it's owned by John and Sarah, and they are avid gardeners, and they've loved gardening. And there was a house for sale in Crystal Palace where I live. And basically I coveted this house for a long, long time. It was a beautiful old Victorian house with outbuildings, and I actually loved the outbuilding because I always thought that could be my office. And then one day I saw a sold sign on it, and I thought, drat it, I'm not having that anymore. And I was thinking, oh, I wonder what will ever open in there. And then a couple of months later I went round and this had opened. And basically this is their story on their website, and they're telling you that we've been professional gardeners for years. We've now decided to take our knowledge and our interest in sustainable gardening, not to mention our love of beautifully made old things as aside, so great sense of humour, and of course tea, coffee and cake, and turn it into something that lots of people can enjoy. So eco is as much a bigger word than green. It's a low impact lifestyle. We've endeavoured to demonstrate this across all areas of the shop. We buy British grown plants. We encourage taking part in the gentle spread of nature. We sell the work of independent local craftspeople. But perhaps most important of all, we've become part of the community, and we've rekindled the spirit of a house and garden that has lain empty since the 1960s. We're very proud to be putting your business at the heart of the local community once again. Now, you know, when you read that, you actually think, oh my God, I've got to go there. I've got to go and support these people. Because this place is not in an area that you would normally go to. It's shoved down a busy side road, and you wouldn't just stumble across this. But I am a huge believer in if you build it, they will come. And this is a perfect example of that. And I'm going to whiz through just so you can see it. This is the house and the little office area and the entrance. At the entrance, they haven't shop fitted this area at all. It is full of upcycled furniture. There is not one piece of decking in this place. It is just filled with things that they have found in flea markets, and they've turned them into fixtures to house products. And they've got a great sense of humour. So roses are key at the moment, and they put a lovely little slate sign saying new rose collection now available, come in and smell the roses. As you can see, lots of upcycled furniture. That's the house, that's where they actually live in. They put their business before their house because they actually refurbished the area for the business and lived in a caravan, and now they've started to actually build the house. But as you can see, they're using old step ladders, old crates. They have a coffee shop, and the coffee shop, as you would expect, is just a collection of old furniture that you can buy. When they do decorative items on the table, it's old teapots full of sedums. But when you get your cup of tea and coffee, it's all mixed-matched china. They bake beautiful cakes that are all made by local friends. They're proud to be British, and they're proud to say that we buy only British plants, and they put all of these lollipop labels. There's a huge trend in London at the moment for community notice boards. Rather than stores plastering their shop fronts with notices, they're all creating notice boards inside the stores, which is very sensible because they're actually drawing customers in rather than customers reading things and then walking away. Here they've used sieves at the back so you can put all your little business cards and things on. And they're not scared about their branding. We always say to people, you should create a brand logo and stick to it. However, here they've broken every rule because they have 3 or 4 logos. But what it is local people have come to their business and actually said, oh, I could do this or I could do that. I can fret cut wood, so I'll create a logo for you, and they put it on the wall. Down here on this other logo down in the left-hand side, Alexandra Nurseries, established in 2012, so it's done in a totally different style, but it works within the eclectic feel of their little nursery. And then when you go inside, they sell vintage and found items. And this is how they do it, by creating wall systems out of old furniture and out of old beams. And look at their tea and coffee and the cakes on the left-hand side, and even down to little details of their business card in a lovely holder. It's a drawer, and the toilet with the playing cards on there to say that this is a toilet. So that's Alexandra Nurseries. If you haven't heard of it, Google it. You'll see many great images, and if you're ever in Crystal Palace, come and look at it. It's really worth a visit. It's tiny, but it's been extremely successful. And lastly, we couldn't go without talking about Next. Whether people love it or hate it, Next have opened a garden centre in Shoreham. It has been hugely successful, surprise, surprise, and they are going to roll this format out right the way across the country. Next know their customer, absolutely know their customer. And all they're doing is they're giving their customer what they loved inside the store, and they're taking it out into the garden. And when you actually look at it, they've started introducing the room sets inside, the same way that they do in the Next stores. But when you get into the garden, you can tell it's Next just by the way that they have done it. They've stuck to their grey colours. They spend money where they are wise, so they've created a beautiful paving so that the floor is one of the big features. All the fixtures and fittings are by Stagecraft. They don't look like Stagecraft fixtures and fittings, but they are. And all they did was work with the Next design team to say, this is what we do. How can we make it look different for you? Well, they've painted it in their Next grey. They've taken all the curves and the angles away, and suddenly it looks very, very different. When you look through it, it's a very edited range of plants. They know that they're not going to be a major expert in plants, but what they're doing is they're doing a curated range of the most popular plants that they know their customers would like at good price points and things that are easy to grow. But one of the key things that Next have used is colour. They know that their homewares customers buy things by colour. So they don't put all the roses together and all whatever together. They actually create colour areas. This is a blue area, and all the plants that are going to actually flower with shades of blue. This is the pink area. And notice the sheds. So they've got sheds, but the Next customer doesn't want a dingy, dusty shed. They want a pretty shed, and they actually want it, they want to keep some of their tools in there, but they actually want to make it look nice. And they want the feminine colours on there as well. So it's a shed, come summer room, come pottery room, come whatever. It's not a dingy, dark shed at the end of the garden. Very, very clever. And that's it. We've overrun. I apologise for that if we kept you. Thank you very much for listening. I hope you found that worthwhile. If anybody is interested, all these images that you see today, we write a blog. I blog every single day of the week. My blog is on the website, internationalvisual.com. There's cards there. If you want to join up for the blog, you will get passed out daily feeds of information, and I'm always looking for great ideas, and I post them on there, so please have a look at it.
If you like us, give us a like on Facebook, because we're on Facebook
We're
as
on
well.
Facebook,
Actually,
we're
no,
on
we need
Twitter.
1,000. We need 1,000.
Yeah.
So John
We're
Stanley
not there yet.
says so.
Yeah.
So we have to get 1,000. And also on our website, there are 4 training sessions that are free for you to download on branding your business, promoting your business, visual merchandising, and window display. All the principles are there, and they're great for staff training. So
You can
feel
download
free
them as PDFs. They're
to
totally
download.
free.
Thank
Okay,
you.
Phill and Lynda, thank you very much. And thank you, everybody, for sitting tight and staying with it. I know we have run over a little bit, but I think that was reflective on your passion for what you do. And hopefully that's where all of your appetites for some ideas that you can take back to your store. Remember, visual merchandising, we've been looking at a lot of fashion and stuff like this, but it applies to every product at this store, whether it's plant food, growing media, pots, tools. Everything can be presented better, and you can get higher prices for it, as anthropology has showed us, just by staging your product in a more compelling way.